Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Visual, where we interview all those people responsible for creating and putting together all the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen, and today my guest is freelance art producer Nick Bologna. Have you guys ever had a shoot where you were told you might need an armored vehicle to get the shoot taken care of and put together before you went down to shoot? Well, Nick has, and he'll tell us all about it in this podcast. We also talk about him and his first shoot in LA, where you had mega permits to the point where you couldn't shoot on one side of the sidewalk without having a permit for that side of the sidewalk, and how his photographer had a cop with them the whole time and would push the photographer because he was literally one or two steps into a place that wasn't permitted. So that was interesting. We talk about his time working at Ralph Lauren, what he's doing now that he's freelancing, and the fact that he can sing and play piano and tell himself to play piano. You can check that all out on his Instagram page, which I will put in the description. So you guys check this one out. It's very interesting. I think you'll really enjoy it. First of all, before we get into the whole meat of how you got started and all this, tell me about this whole thing I've been seeing on Instagram lately with you playing piano and singing and all that kind of stuff. Where did that come from?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been singing my whole life, but I just kind of like in, the downtime, like when, during quarantine, you're spending a ton of time at home, and I just sort of was just like, okay, like, there was something to pass the time, and I had taught myself piano years ago, and then I think I just, in like a moment of bravery, like a month or so ago, I put one on Instagram, and all my friends were like really supportive. So I was like, oh, okay, haha. And one friend in particular was like, she was like, you have to do more of these. And I was like, okay. I was like, I don't know if it's gonna like muddy the waters of like any sort of online perception of me or something, but I don't know. I think they're kind of fun now.
I think it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's something I would do anyway. And it's just a matter of, we live on the internet now so often, so I was like, might as well put that up there too.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah, to be honest with you, when I first heard it, I thought, all right, is he lip syncing? Is this like, I thought, damn, no, that's really singing. It was great. And you taught yourself piano?
Yeah, when I was like, 8 or 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that, I had a little Casio like keyboard with a bunch of like programmed like sounds and programmed songs in it, and I think I just kind of like would just like hammer away at it, and like kind of like, and I learned music when I played trumpet and as a kid too, so like I knew like how to read music and stuff like that. So then sort of just like translated that into just some basic chords and things. And
do you play anything
it's
else?
taken a while since I moved to New York. I never had an apartment large enough that I could actually fit a keyboard into.
Yeah.
Last year I had, so so that's been my new rediscovered hobby.
Yeah, it's very cool. Do you play anything else?
Just that for now. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. I've always wanted to learn to play piano, but never did. I just never did. I played guitar a little bit. I played saxophone in middle school, whatever, but I never learned to play piano like I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe someday. Probably not, but maybe.
Okay. Put it on your list.
I'll put it down. It'll be a list of things I'm going to do when I retire.
Yeah.
Down the road. Well, so tell me about how you got into all this, as far as getting into being an art producer and all that. Were you creative as a kid? Was this something like when you were a kid, did you say, I want to look at TV and do advertisements, or magazines, say, I want to do that kind of stuff? Or did you want to be, whatever, a doctor or lawyer or whatever?
No, sure. I mean, yeah, I do like vividly remember like when I was kind of young, like watching, it was something on like the Discovery Channel or something, and it was behind the like food advertisements, and like, when they brush like the hamburger with like whatever, or like lacquer and do all these sort of like tricks. And it was all this like food styling stuff. And I was like fairly young, and I just remember being like, I was like I had been tricked up until this point, and I was like finally discovering some like thing, like, and it kind of just by the connection started happening. I was just like, oh, that's so interesting, and like, well, and I just think that effect never left me. And then I sort of got into photography a little bit later, when I was still like in high school. And and was sort of there was a girl that was older than me who went to the Art Institute in Pittsburgh. I grew up outside of Pittsburgh. And she like commented on my MySpace photo that I had put. And she was like, oh, the contrast and the composition and all this stuff. So there was like just further encouragement there. And then I did eventually go to like a performing arts high school where I majored in photography. So I was like, I knew that was going to be like my career.
Yeah.
And then I came to New York to go to SVA to study photography. So in that sort of phase, after I'd been like sort of immersed in like visual media, and I was doing a little bit of design and then mostly photography, I then kind of was just like, all right, now I need to figure out like what like my job is going to be, right? And so I interned in a couple of magazines in college, and kind of like found that there was this like job function that that was close to the art, but you were still sort of like there was a different function. There was this sort of behind the scenes like list of job responsibilities that was just like something that like kind of fascinated me from that burger video that I was like, that had stuck with me. So that kind of started there, and then I interned at a couple magazines, and then sort of the rest is kind of history. It took a little while after school, but I eventually started working in advertising as an art buyer, and pharmaceutical advertising, which was like was definitely not on my list of things when I was younger, but definitely was.
I doubt you remember, but that's where I met you.
Yeah, that's right.
Saatchi's Wellness.
Yes, it's actually well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had like a really great mentor too. So that was like my director was she doesn't know I consider her a mentor, but I do. She really kind of gave me like a crash course, and like she's like, here's how the industry works, and like square one, like and she was like having me take meetings
Do you want to
with
say her
artists
name?
daily. Yeah. And it was this very like intense, not intense, but it was just I couldn't have asked for like a better sort of like teacher and all of that.
Do you want to say who she was?
Yeah, Ali Cohen.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually going to talk to her later today, so I'll tell her that we
Are
spoke.
you? Well, tell her she needs to be on the damn podcast, because I think I asked her. I can't remember if I asked her to be on the podcast or I told her I was going to be in New York back in February.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she wasn't in the city anymore. She was taking some time off for freelancer or something.
Yeah, I'll tell her you said hi.
But yeah, tell her I said hi. Yeah, that'd be great. First of all, do you know Art Streiber, the photographer? He shot all these celebrities and all that stuff. I interviewed him. He would be very happy with the way you have your Zoom call set up, because he has a camera. He's like a Canon, and he shoots, and the whole background's all blown out of focus, so you can't see what's behind him. And I said, that looks really cool. I said, I'm sitting here with like, you can see everything behind me like everybody else. He said, yeah, but you're in a corner like you are. So everything kind of comes in together. He said, so it's not just a flat wall. He would be impressed. I was happy that he complimented on it, so I would assume he'd be impressed that you did the same thing.
I did notice that, like, just that how when my furniture got all laid out, my desk ended up in the corner, so I have this very dynamic line here, and I'm right by my window.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and the lighting's really nice. You got good lighting going on.
I have 3 LED ring lights up here too, because Zoom calls are the future, and I would be. There is no way that I would do a Zoom call without proper lighting. So it's like I can't unlearn that stuff. So,
which is good, because there are plenty of people who don't understand that.
Well, right, yeah. So I think if this is going to be the way we communicate in the future, might as well invest in some lighting only for Zoom calls.
Yeah, the Zoom call thing. It's been good, I guess, because it's been a way for me to actually do this thing and meet people and kind of talk. And so that's been cool. Otherwise, I've just been sitting here at my desk, banging my head against it.
Yeah, it does. It presents new challenges, I think. Like, you have like accessibility to talk to anybody. That's the norm now. You can I assume you're calling me from Charlotte.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we were talking, we just spoke earlier this week, and now we're talking now. It does also present like a challenge to be very mindful of your work hours. If there's if your home space is becoming your workspace, if you're not segmenting specific times to not work, then you're kind of like, because you don't have that physical separation. So that's been
Yeah, I
like
think
those.
that's important too. I think people need to understand that you have. I I don't shoot studio very often, so I don't have a studio. I rent a studio if I need it. So I work out of my house when I'm not actually shooting. So I've kind of learned that over the years of, all right, now it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever. I'm going to stop for today. I'll still come back in my office and do something for about 10, 30 minutes occasionally, at night, but I won't come back in here and keep working. Where I could see a lot of people would just be, oh, well, we can have everybody's at home anyway. I've got stuff going on. Let's have a Zoom call at 8 tonight,
Right.
and have a
No,
meeting.
yeah, it's not. That is not ideal. I mean, yeah, it's like this. It's this thing where it's like, someone who, like, I think about this all the time with the fact that everyone has a cell phone. And I think someone much smarter than me kind of said was just like, it's you. We have now this presumption that like at any time you are accessible.
Yes.
Like it takes this weird like humanistic quality away from if you're just like if you're able to be summoned at literally any moment out of your bed at night too. It's just like I think it's so that's kind of very normal now.
Yeah.
So I think there's a similar thing kind of happening with like so many people working from home and and having and blurring the lines between their work and home space. And so I think we have to sort of like be mindful and sort of like humanistic about the way we work from now on. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it was just
agree.
I mean this is all we're all kind of learning too because this is all developed in the last like what 8 months.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so it's an interesting world out there
Yeah. I wish
now.
I'd invested in Zoom about a year ago.
I feel like I'd never heard of it prior to that. Like
Yeah.
it was even like it was all like Skype. I even like I listened to another podcast and they're like they do video interviews and she always says join me over Skype and then all of a sudden it just like Skype was abducted by aliens and the aliens implanted Zoom into our sphere and
Yeah, it was weird. I thought for sure Skype would be the thing, because everybody's talking about, well, if you didn't FaceTime, you would Skype somebody. And so I thought, all right, well, Skype would be the thing. Skype missed out big time on this deal.
really I mean I don't yeah who we need to look into how that switch over happened because there's a story there somewhere.
Yeah, their
The like
COO or CMO or somebody over there are
show
completely.
up to work that day or something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Maybe you need to hit them up and tell them they need your help.
I'm gonna look into it. I'll look into it. I'll let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me about some of the places you've worked. So you did Saatchi where you learned
Mm.
with Ali. Then what happened after that?
So I was at Saatchi for about 2.5 years, and then after that, I ended up finding myself at a fashion artist, like an artist agency, doing a lot of fashion work. So immediately from pharmaceuticals to in advertising to sort of like very editorial, on at the artist level representation. I was part agent and photo producer for an agency for a time, and I think I was using a lot of the relationship building that I kind of like taken from Saatchi. As a former artist myself, it kind of lent to the agent side of that role. And then it was giving me something back that I kind of missed too, which was being like very hands-on with the production. So they had a small photo roster and any sort of production need they had for their projects, for those three artists, I would handle. So it was kind of like back to that, reminding me back of my interning days when the day of the shoot, I'm like find myself in a pet store buying like squeaky toys to like take to the set, like right after that to like spray paint them gold. And, it was like that, like very hands-on,
Yeah.
like that, like early grunt work that I was like kind of really made me excited about the project. And I was kind of doing a little bit of that again and spent some time there. And then I went from that agency to Art Partner, where I was sort of doing fashion, but like with a capital F fashion, like very like, back in that commercial world again, but with fashion, which was really cool too. Cause I think I started like on a Wednesday and by Friday I was like working on a Tiffany's like campaign. I was like
Really?
2 days,
Wow.
like go. That was kind of exciting. And definitely got to like again, it was inside the agency, so it was like learning like how about each individual artist and their personalities and their sort of like how they work. And I think being nimble has been like the top line sort of like uh, theme of my career so far, is like versatility and just being like, all right, like this is the issue presented today, like figure that out. And I think finding I like always enjoyed like being I always enjoyed being the one to like to raise my hand to have the answer on something. So like I think this is like I'm finding my that's definitely part of my groove.
Well, I think that's important, especially, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're in a job like this whole thing, I mean, nothing goes as it's planned. So you've got to be nimble. You've got to be somebody who can adjust and take care of stuff last minute and figure out how to correct it and fix it and that kind of thing. So
Totally.
it's good.
It's really fun. It's like it's I think one thing I've always tried to keep in mind too is that no matter how like intense and stressful these things that a situation can be, like to have a sense of realism about it, and that like to remove yourself for a second and being like, okay, this isn't like this is an issue, but is the sky going to actually fall down on us? And the answer is always no.
Right.
And then after that, you kind of say like, okay, just helps to put things into perspective, so then you can really truly think clearly. And you got to kind of be like, I find that even in my social settings, in my friend groups, I'm always the one with that keeps their head on their shoulders and like, all right, guys, like we can figure this out. Don't freak out. And that definitely matriculates into my work too, kind of like keeping everyone calm and fed and caffeinated on set.
That's important for sure. Absolutely. When did you get to go on shoots when you were at Saatchi? Did you go on shoots then, or when you moved over to the rep and the agent end over there with those agencies? Was that when you first went on?
Oh yeah, no. So I never actually got to travel as a shoots for when I was at Wellness, but my first location shoot at this artist agency was kind of a fun one because it was a location shoot on the Venice Beach boardwalk, this like fashion shoot. And so I was permitting all these things and like getting all that ready. And I had never been to LA before.
That's a
So I
freak
was
show
like,
right there, isn't it? Venice
oh
Beach.
gosh, yeah. Well, that was the funny thing. So when like I had produced this entire shoot, having never been to like LA in my life, like I was picking up like the actual location permit in Hollywood, like in an Uber, and I'm like, sure, like Marina Del Rey is like probably really close to like down or whatever in Hollywood, and so I learned that was not the case. But then I got there on the day of the shoot, and it was just like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a wild place there, and just like so like intricate. Like there's like we were so specifically permitted that like one side of the sidewalk was like off bounds to us.
Really?
Like there's like yeah, like the skate park is owned
Yeah.
by. And I think like the basketball courts are like a different municipality from like the main stretch of like all the shops.
Really?
And they like, and you need like two offices to speak to each other. And when I was talking to them, it's like they had never heard of like the other before. Like they were like, it was like the parks department needed to talk to like somebody else from the city. And like, I'm like, hi, I need you to talk to this person over here. And they're like, we've never heard of them before. I'm like, okay. Like, and then it was so specific. And I think it was like a different office you had to call to get like off of that main stretch where the shops are into like those like the athletic areas. Cause that's technically part of like the parks department or something.
Okay.
And on the day of the shoot, we had an officer like with us, like a person with us on set who would like who's physically like by the shoulders took my photographer because he was standing on like the wrong
Really?
side. But yeah, she was intense,
Wow.
and she did switch off for her lunch break. We did get we got a second shift person too, but they were on it like for that 10 minutes that we didn't have a person. We definitely like took took our freedom
Yeah.
to get some like shots that we really needed. But yeah, no, they were very, it's a really buttoned up thing. We actually like got challenged for our spot the day before the shoot. I'm in like the hotel like office, and like the person from the parks department calls me and like there's another production challenging me for my tiny little like spot. And they're like, well, just don't get in their way tomorrow. And I was like, who are these people? Like, yeah, it was really intense.
Wow.
Especially thinking that we got all this way and almost lost our location the day before the shoot was like kind of a
Yeah. How's that even happen? That I don't know. I guess maybe it's one of
They
those
were,
things
they
where,
were
yeah, the
we were like an
producer's
independent.
always talking to them and like, hey, you got to do me a favor on this one. Kick them out.
I was just like, absolutely. I'm on the phone. I'm like, absolutely not. Goodbye. Like, like
Yeah.
he was. I think he needed to ask me for permission to do it, and he was kind of like trying to big time me a little bit. I was just like, no, goodbye. Like, I'm having my shoot tomorrow. And they were. It was like we were like a smaller mobile crew, so I was just like, we're not going to be an issue. I think they were like a larger, more like concrete TV production that like needed the space, and we saw them that day. They were walking around with one guy and a camera too. Like, it wasn't like a. It was just, I think they were just, it was like an ego thing. They're like, we own the beach. And like, no, I was like, get out of here.
Yeah, I could see that. I was in LA shooting. God, where is it? Somewhere near Malibu on the beach where they have all those rocks all on the beach and all that kind of stuff. I can't remember the name of the beach right now. And we were shooting, and I think there was some department store shooting there as well. And some guy came over and was like, "What are you guys shooting?" I was like, "I was just doing a shoot for myself
Yeah.
at the time because I was in town for some stuff, and I ended up having like an extra 4 hours or something. So I grabbed some people and we went down to shoot. I was like, I'm just shooting. He's like, oh, okay. All right. Well, he was worried that we were going to be shooting the same location as whatever they were shooting and didn't want it to
Um,
end up being like another production, end up being, I guess, running ads, printing ads of the same thing with the same
yeah.
location. I don't know what it was, but yeah, he was a little freaked out.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. You, like the ad shows up and it's like the same,
Yes.
like,
Did you get to hang out and go over and get your prescription for medical marijuana and Botox all at the same place?
I
Did you
did
see
not,
that little area?
I did not have a time on that shoot to go do that. No, but, no, yeah, there was, I mean, at Venice Beach.
Yeah, I was walking. We're shooting there one day. And we had scouted in the morning, and I didn't realize at the time, this was a few years ago, that medical marijuana was legal.
Uh-huh.
And there are cops within eyesight, and then I'm smelling all this weed, and this dude's blazing right like within 10 feet of me. And I looked at my location scout, and it's like, what the hell? And it's like, oh, it's legal here. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we went on, we shot. At the end of the day, we're walking back, and this woman with a clipboard stops me and goes, would you like to see if you qualify for medical marijuana? And you look behind her. Yeah. So basically, I guess if you go, yeah, God, I get lots of migraines. It would have been like, well, all right, here you go. Go get your weed. And
Yeah.
it was literally the weed store right next to the Botox store place. So almost
Who's going to get Botox at the beach?
at Venice Beach.
I,
No. I assume
I,
it's the same doctor just went back and forth between the two. It's like, here's your script for the weed, and I'm going to go shoot this person up with their Botox right now.
it's like, yeah, he's doctoring up a story. He's just like curing everyone's problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He's such a valuable asset in that culture.
Yeah, Venice Beach is definitely. My wife and I were there one time years ago. We were visiting some friends, and a seagull shit in her hair, just like flew over and dropped.
Actually,
And she was freaking out. And our friend is like, it's okay. It's good luck if the bird shits on your hair. And that's like what telling a bride it's good luck if it rains on her wedding day. It's just so they don't freak out because
right.
nothing's going right. So our friend goes, all right, I'm going to go get you some napkins. Hold on, I'll go get some napkins. And these two stoner dudes came over and they're just like, dude, what's wrong? And she's like, the bird shit in my hair. Oh my God. And he's like, whoa, man, that's terrible. And she goes, yeah, can I have your shirt? He goes, wait, no, man, no. He was going to give her a shirt, and she was wipe it out with it. And it finally clicked right as he was about to take his shirt off what she was going to do with his shirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I was just there.
You tell someone like just to comfort them that it's like good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be. There's no other way because. I mean, it was a decent day. Other than that, it was a good day, but I don't know that it brought her good luck down the road. So, while we're on this whole subject, tell me a little bit about like any other shoots like that were like really cool that you enjoyed working on, being on. And
Yeah, I mean,
inside this one, you don't even have to tell me client. You can just tell me the whole scenario because this was pretty
right.
cool. I enjoyed that.
Oh God. So, I mean, I think one other one that kind of like sticks in my mind is that it was with sort of like a fashion client, and for just, it was like a seasonal editorial that they were going to do for their website. And they wanted to shoot it in, the concept basically called for like Rio de Janeiro. Like it was like all these like colors, boardwalk, like mountain, like beach. And I think one of the reference shots was like a beach, like in Rio. And we were like, okay, we kind of like look, and they were like, and here's your like budget, which was like not conducive. And we're like, okay. And so we kind of we looked at the images. We kind of ended up finding some locations in Mexico, which like, I think there was something to do with the visas. So like everyone in the crew was going to have like issues getting visas to work in Rio de Janeiro, but some of them were European and their like visas were like had applied somehow to Mexico. So we can get everyone's visas and get them into Mexico. There's only a couple people coming from the United States that were like that we could like rush those visas or something. So then we kind of started selling the client on all these Mexico locations, and the one that they kind of decided on was Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I think because there was some store. The reason that we ended up finding was like, I guess back in the day, like advertising shoots would go to Puerto Vallarta. Wait, is that
That's where the Love Boat would always dock.
Yeah, it was
My
something
TV
that
show.
like it was maybe it was another city, but it was I think we ended up shooting in Puerto Vallarta. That was the thing. It was another city that basically, and I actually probably better, I don't remember. I don't want to bash the city, but I think back in the day it was a big advertising location city. And you know, those like, I don't know, the art director wanted to basically a paid vacation. So he like would like, you know, schedule a shoot there. So that was like in the past. Apparently we like looked up this like location and like all like there, it was basically there's like, it was like the highest murder rate like in South America per capita, period. Like number one murder country and or rather city. And it was just because there was a lot of like, it was just a lot of corrupt government and a lot of like these cartels were like running it was just very not so great place to be.
Yeah.
US officials were like, all US like government workers are banned from traveling there. And this is like years ago before any other sort of a situation. So, so we're like,
Juarez, was
I
it?
don't know if we should go there because they were like, you know, we were talking to some like fixers like in the location, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna want like, you know, some armored vans and like some like, you know, you might want a team of like 5 fixers rather than just like one, because you know they were just really warning us against this location. And I was just like, but the client was sold. They were like, we want to shoot here. They're like buying tickets. All these things, and we ended up like really pulling a bait, like not a bait and switch, but we were just like kind of pulling the ripcord on just like, we can't take you here. This is the reason why. Like, you know, like it's not going to be a good shoot. And we had to find, and I think that's what it was. We found Puerto Vallarta, and we're like, here's all of the locations translated to another city. Like, and they were like, oh, okay, fine. You know, but it was just like, we basically almost had, you know, and it was like, I think we had people like boarding airplanes by this point. Like we were like, I think we redirected them somehow. We got them like, they had to fly into like Mexico City and then transfer out. I think we got them different transferred flights to like the new location. But we had, that shoot was kind of intense. It was just all these last minute, like international travel, like stipulations. And, I think we even had like, the client like boarded the airplane without like signing our budget. So we're like, they're in the air and we have like a PDF with like no signature on it. And we're just like, God, I hope they're ready to like sign when they land, because they're there, you know, like,
Right.
because they were traveling from another country too. So it was like, that was an intense one. I always like that was just like a really wild week. I remember. It was
Yeah.
just, you know, I think it's one of those things. It's like, that's what a perfect example of like, you know, just roll with like the punches, like, you know, figure it out, you know.
That's
And we
impressive.
turned an entire shoot to a different city in the matter of like 2 days. So like,
Yeah, I was gonna say that's impressive. People are on flights and you're changing their flights from their layovers to get to the new location and trying to
well,
leave
they're over
Murder
the
City
ocean right now,
behind.
so they're not going to answer your email about the budget. It was kind of
I didn't have that. I was shooting in El Paso one time, and the one of the people on the shoot was like, when you guys finish today, you guys should go over and check out Juarez. It's a pretty cool little area. You can literally walk across the bridge and get into Juarez. I was like, all
Mhm.
right, that sounds okay, but we're probably not going to get finished till, probably like an hour or two before sunset. And like, oh, it'll be fun. Later in the day, I'm talking to somebody else like, dude, no way. You do not want to go to Juarez, like, because the sheriff is asking for asylum over there because the cartels are killing everybody.
You know.
And then some girl told me, she said, oh, yeah, my aunt lives in Juarez, and she was at a stoplight, and the car in front of her, the stoplight turned green, and the car in front of her didn't move. And she just sat there and waited and waited, and the light turned red, and the car never moved. And she was just like, what's going on? The guy in the car got out, came back to her car, gave her money, told her you did the right thing, went back, got in the car, and took off. And I was like, what's that mean? She goes, evidently he was a cartel guy and he was being initiated or something. And if she had honked her horn, he was going to come back and just put a bullet in her head. I was like, I'm
Oh,
going to pass on going to Juarez. I think I
oh,
will not be going there.
I mean, apart from just like, personal danger, like working in environments like that, I don't know. That's one thing that I think this industry is so interesting because you're trying to tell a story about like society and you're like trying to like edge your way into like spaces and locations and all these things to like do that. And like, I don't know, I just find it's like you're, these are all sort of things that you like are come into play when you're trying to like plan, you know, like we're trying to take some pictures, man. It's just
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah. We're just trying to take pictures. I'm not trying to get killed.
no one get harmed, like on
Yeah.
our shoot.
Yeah. That's always a plus where you can leave a shoot and nobody's been hurt.
Yeah, that's like most ideal.
So you worked for Ralph Lauren for a little while.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about, I want to know a little bit about what it's like working at Ralph Lauren, but I was there one time years and years ago. And I
Mhm.
walked into the main waiting area or whatever, and that place is like the nicest, biggest mansion you've ever been to in your life. And you just walk in, you're like, damn, this is unbelievable. And then you get taken down to the offices, and you're like, this is like a prison. You went from like all of a sudden this opulence of Ralph Lauren down to like gray walls and cinder block kind of feel.
I mean, their aesthetic is very much that like that palatial. I mean, you go to their store, their flagship store. It's this like beautiful like two like these mansions like on the Upper East Side, and yeah, so that was like kind of I really enjoyed like working with that brand, and I think I resonated a little bit with that brand. My like bougie self kind of
Yeah.
like was satisfied. But I worked for the digital studio and doing all of their website images, so like their e-com shoots. And that was just sort of a different like approach to production, where it was like we were shooting like 10 shoots on figure shoots, full day of like rack of images per week. Like it was probably one of the most like fast paced
Hmm.
jobs I've ever had, where we're working with like we want to like have this really high quality image with like models that like were relevant in the industry. So it was like a lot of like selective casting and like really mindful casting with really great talent that we had, and like they had their sort of we had all these needs to get through like a certain amount of product in a day. So it was like we were shooting so many times a week, fast turnarounds. Like there was it could be like a Tuesday and we have nothing planned, and then like by that afternoon we have like 6 shoots that have had come out of nowhere to do for like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Wow.
So that was kind of intense. It was really like a test of like my, again, like one of these like versatility, like and rolling with the punches kinds of things. uh yeah, I would say that was the biggest takeaway, was that I look back and I'm just like, I was like, we did that. Like it was like we like managed to get just some sort of like we pulled a lot of things off that I don't think I ever had before, by just a matter of organizing but yeah, that was a really intense experience. And now I'm kind of moving on to freelancing, so which I'm excited about.
Yeah, which I would think the whole Ralph Lauren digital thing would be huge, as far as you obviously already had experience and could handle things amazingly. Like the whole Mexico thing blows my mind that you could switch flights and all that. I'm still hooked on that one right now. But to go into a digital studio like that where things are so fast, so many shots in a day or in a week, and then be able to transition that, it's almost like getting thrown in and learning. I'm assuming you learned to even work with things even better than you did before, because occasionally I shoot ecom as well.
Mhm.
And it's a whole different beast shooting ecom as opposed to shooting something where it's for an ad on location and you get 4 shots, 5 shots a day, as opposed to doing like I know, like I do some Belk ecom stuff and
Mhm.
they're pumping 170, 200 shots a day sometimes. It's
Wow.
ridiculous the amount they're pushing out. So I know that just even with a smaller amount, which I'm sure, because I don't think other than like Amazon, some other nut job places are shooting that many. Ralph Lauren being a higher end probably takes more time. Um, there's still a big learning thing, I would think, that helps you even move. Even if you've been in the business for a while and never done it, I think you probably learn a lot of things by doing the ecom that maybe translate into just regular shoots down the road.
Well, sure. I think the biggest like driving factor from that kind of like shooting in that fashion is that like um it shows you how much of a business like fashion is. So, because every sort of factor on that set to like every like the like amount of like assistance we could have to like or like the certain rates everyone and every shot we get and every like that like dollar value of the garment comes into like is incorporated into an equation that somebody had figured out prior to that to like basically balance out to break even at the end of the shoot, and then to have like every factor on that set played into the final and just yeah they had to kind of break even and sort of keep their lights on, and obviously like there's a profit margin that they want to make too, so
Right.
it's like every single thing was important, um which I think was I never sort of needed to was asked to like kind of focus like so like nothing was that we could have a second assistant or something we could if needed or something
Right.
that kind of played into a budget that was much more complex than I think I'd ever worked in
So it's
before.
more something like where you have so this many crew members, however many it was on set, and say let's just go 5, just for whatever reason. You have 5 crew members on set, which means you have to shoot plus the models. You have to shoot so many shots that day to break even, and if you get over that, you start into profit. Is that kind
I
of how?
think something like that. It was the exact numbers I'm not sure of, but it was that's how the like budgets were set.
Right.
Was like you hit these goals and then you hit these goals for the season and like for the week and like all these things. So it was very like so it was very well tracked. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Um, which is so that was like I think it's something that I'd never considered prior to that, so that was like a really great takeaway that like to know how that system works in like an econ setting. So if I were to go somewhere else, like that will at least make sense. It'll be part of my vocabulary again. So
That's good. Well, let's
yeah,
see, you learned something, so that's a good thing.
absolutely.
Tell me about freelancing. I know you've done it before, right? You started out, you left to do freelance this time, but I think you freelanced. It looked like on LinkedIn anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe you freelanced once or twice before, but so tell me a little bit about the freelancing, how you decided to start doing it this time. All that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So in the past, I'd kind of done a little freelance work in between, sort of like when I was in full-time positions. And I think lending to like the importance of being versatile. I was doing all kinds of different projects. I worked at some point was working for like an animation, like a illustration animation house, coming from like a fashion
Oh wow.
job. So like that was an interesting. I was like, there was like a fragrance shoot that I think I was on as a freelance gig. That was basically it was like a UK client that like just wanted somebody to babysit the set. So that was like sort of an easy freelance gig. But kind of like when we were talking about earlier about the whole music thing and putting that stuff up on my Instagram, my approach to like freelancing now, I think I'm less afraid to kind of like be like a whole like a well-rounded person, I think, is like as far as my image professionally. And I think I hope that will lend to like my image as like a producer, because I think that might be a more ideal way of working in the future. I think all this sort of like working from home, you do a Zoom call and you kind of see into someone's home. Whereas in the past, I think there was a lot of like posturing to like, have some sort of like very corporate clean image. Um, I think my goal in the future is to sort of focus on the humanistic side of this industry, because it's an industry built with people, and like, consists of people. Um, and freelancing, I think sort of like, I want to portray sort of like me completely as a part of the team, as a person that you would hire because you want to hang out with that person, you want to work with them. So yeah, so it's been great. It's been a couple weeks. I have a really close friend who's a fashion photographer. We just shot an editorial for a certain magazine that's, I think, due to come out in this next month, and which is a really great sort of like first gig off out of the gate, to work with one of my friends as
Yeah.
well too. He's like a friend of mine that I've had for over 10 years, and we kind of like, it's very much that we have a work lunch or something, and it's like, we get work done, but it's like, I'm hanging out with my friend again too. But
Which I think is
this is great
important.
so far.
Yeah, I mean that's important to have people you like, especially if you're spending days, with those people. So
Yeah,
it's cool that you get to work with somebody that you've known for 10 years,
yeah,
right out of the
definitely.
gate.
When it's the stressful times happen, it's like, it's a whole different quality to sort of like, to alleviate a situation with someone who you have so much personal like context with too.
Yeah,
I think we can speak more honestly to each other, having had that, that relationship and everything. So, and there's also like, we also understand each other a little bit too. Like, there's on a kind of an intimate level too. So we're like, I know what like makes him like upset or something,
right.
or he preferred, and I think he knows like my limits on things. It was like a really interesting working relationship. We'd worked a couple times together before. Um, but yeah, that was sort of like a good, it was a really good tone setting shoot to sort of like start on this new sort of freelance venture.
What about art producing do you really like? Because I hate producing. So
Mm.
I prefer to hire producers. So
Yeah.
what is it about it that you like doing?
Um, I don't know. I think I always kind of say it's like, I do love just the organizing factor of it, that it is like, there's some like OCD quality that I have, that like putting pieces together makes me satisfied. I think ultimately, everyone kind of does that in some way. Um, but I think it's a matter. I think apart from, or within a reasonable space, I enjoy kind of like supporting people and being someone's, not cheerleader necessarily, 'cause it's a little like diminutive, but like, um, well, I enjoy watching someone get like succeed in what they want. So it's like with my friend, right? This shoot we
Right.
just did. He had this really specific vision, and I care about him and his work. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna like, while he's sort of wrapped up in his concept, I'm gonna pull up, like, support the other end of this by positioning him in a way that's he's going to make all those connections and and get that look that he wants. So we focused a lot on casting with this shoot. So it was like, that was our that was sort of like, yeah, that was the theme of this shoot, was a really, really mindful casting. And he had this idea in his head, and I was like, okay, he's sort of so much in this other world. I'll take a sidestep outside of that sort of like frustration bubble, and make these options sort of appear, so that because I know he's going to land on something. Like, once he sees it, and he'll like it. Um, and it's that kind of like, and when we did get the casting that was like amazing, it's like that part is what sort of gets me off, is that like, we like I know that there's like a certain necessary part of the equation that is unemotional, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I know that I have the capability to do that, to sort of like take the emotion out of it, add the practicality back into the equation, and sort of ultimately that's what you get at the end, is a combination of both of those things. Um, so yeah, so I think that's part of it. Like I really enjoy seeing like I that shoot went off great. I enjoyed seeing that how satisfied he was at the end of it too. It was a long day. I remember I ended up playing like photo assistant at some point too.
Oh,
So we were
wow.
it was a long day of like you know, all the prep work and then the actual shoot day and loading the van and then like unloading the van and reloading the van and then we were shooting like outside of New York. So we were like traveled 2 hours. It was a very intense day, but at the end of it, I was, you know, satisfied.
Is there a
Um,
difference between producing, say, something like that and producing when you're over at wellness, that kind of deal, as job wise? Because I'm assuming
yeah.
there's, yeah,
I mean, uh, certain commercial clients require an actual document with numbers on it. I think
right.
this is like, that working with this editorial, we did not necessarily have, I didn't have to get him to sign anything, but it was like, uh, yes, for sure that there's like certain formalities on with commercial clients, especially uh, like larger commercial entities. Um, you know, like I think the relationship element exists somewhere in that line.
Yeah.
But like, it was never necessarily my job to do that. Like account executives, I think were like the people that, you know, have that person to person relationship, which I was kind of fine with at the beginning. I didn't want to like, that was, I mean, I think it takes more people than that to sort of like work in a commercial setting like that.
Yeah.
So like we were also we're so insulated so that when the frustrating stuff would happen, we can like yell and scream and like about our budget and something. And then like, you know, that was insulated um, from complicating the process, I think, to other branches of that sort of line.
That's probably smart, I would think. Keep it from
Yeah.
bleeding over into there. So when you were doing, or even now, I guess when you're freelancing, how do you find, say, a photographer or a director for a project? Do you go to Instagram? Do you have a list of people? Are people emailing the hell out of you and annoying you every day with like, "Hey, I can shoot"? Um, how's that work?
I do get a handful of emails. I always look at them and I always save them. I always have like, I mean, I would be remiss as a producer if I didn't take like, didn't like take the people that are reaching out to me, um, and acknowledging them in some way, shape, or form. But what I find if I'm looking for someone, you know, I think it's kind of whoever's in my headspace in the time, which kind of makes it helpful for like those people like sending me promotional material. Um, you know, whoever I'm kind of following on Instagram, like I'll go back and look through that folder, like email folder of like promos. I
Okay,
still
you might
have,
want to clarify how often you want to get an email because if some photographer hear this, they go, "Oh, so if I'm right on his mind when a project pops up, I'll email him every other week, every week."
to be honest with you, I bring it on. Like I
Okay.
really do feel like I want to know what people are doing. I'm not like omniscient and omnipresent. Like, um, you know, like I only follow so many people on Instagram, right? It's like it's not like there's a like I have every eye, like an eye in every corner. So like yes, I do understand. Yeah, maybe hundreds of emails a month is not great, but like
Yeah.
from one singular person. But
Yeah.
um, no, I do think that those things are helpful. And I was just saying that like I still have promo card mailers
Yeah.
from Saturday in a box.
Wow.
And I like sometimes look through them. Like, you know, there's definitely ones that I saved and I put up around like my workspace at the office. Um, but I think that like I think that's what everyone would be helpful to remember too is that the people that are producing it, the unemotional people, do have like an emotional connection to image making and certain things they really enjoy and like there's an interest um, on our end of it too, like a really like a real vested interest in it. So like there's images that I just was like, wow, I'm just so moved by that. I want to look at it every day, and that was sort of like a promotional material thing. There's a sort of connection gets created and a relationship gets created in that person's mind. That I think, you know, we're all right. We're in the business in sort of like creating emotional experiences. So um, that sort of thing, you know, this industry is about people, and in my opinion,
Yeah.
um, and so like the more that we can bring, like, connect people, like, more I see what you're working on, and like see what whoever else is working on, like that's all part of the territory, in my
Have you ever
opinion.
had one where you saw the work of a photographer or director, whoever, and you thought this person would be great? Then you get them on a call and you go, yeah, I don't think we can put up with him or her for, 3 days, 2 days, 5 days.
I think the time only time that like assessment is helpful is when I know who their creative will be. Like in an advertising environment, right? So there's like an artist that would be great for a job. Visually, like their product, their style would be great for this project. And the creatives even likes them too, right? So like get them on a call. The only time that I've ever sort of incorporated that line of thinking is when I know that there will be a personality clash
Yeah.
between the creative that they have to make the work for. And sometimes that happens. Like it's just, and it's not like anyone's fault. It's just like you kind of part of this job too is kind of knowing personalities and like being like, okay, that person's not going to get along with that person, or they will. Maybe they'll get along too well, and then
Right.
like then like an 8 hour meeting will occur and nothing will get done. You know, so it's like maybe they'll like kind of buddy too much, and um, yeah. So I think that's the productive approach to like personality assessment is like, is it going to be, and I also have to take my ego out of it too. It's like, doesn't matter if I don't like them or not.
Yeah.
Uh, like that's, you kind of put your ego aside a little bit and be like, okay, even this person annoys me, but I know that they're going to like, maybe the creative annoys me too. And they're going to get on. You know what I mean?
Which I think
It's,
that can be hard sometimes to put your ego off to the side like that, especially if somebody's really irritating the hell out of you. Like, all right, this would be a good person for this project, but I can't stand them.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is definitely something that's like a necessary evil of the job is to, like, sometimes like, yeah, it is the removal of the ego, but like it's for the best, like, you know. And then I get my kicks in other areas of my life. I don't need to like impose my ego onto my job. Like that's actually kind of why I didn't want to necessarily pursue a career like as a photographer, because it's not that I like I just didn't feel like I wanted to be the like name person.
Right.
Like that wasn't important to me. Some people that's really important to, and I that's like valid. And some people are really good at that, of being like creating an image around themselves. It wasn't something that I was like interested in. So I think I have to remind myself of that too. Is that like, you know, this I didn't get into this to like be like a person, like give me a name.
Right.
Right. That's not my function. Um, and that's sort of like getting back to this like piano stuff on Instagram, like that stuff is like kind of fun, like that's that's my stage, I guess, and to in the spotlight, I guess, but that's not necessarily what I do to make money for
Right.
work, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you shot any since this whole COVID thing happened? I mean, outside the
uh,
studio?
Actually, so I haven't actually shot anything in a while. Part of the reason is that, like I said, this friend of mine that I did the shoot for, he has a lot of my equipment because he
Yeah.
uses it more often. So it's actually sitting in his apartment at the moment, my camera and
Okay.
all. I know that I saw that you've been shooting some stuff though. I
Yeah.
was looking at the website right before we got on the call, and I was looking at some of your Kamala Harris stuff, and
Yeah. That
um,
was pretty fun. That was a good
yeah,
shoot.
very cool to meet her. Did you get to meet her?
Yeah, yeah. I got to meet her and told her, had to move her, tell her where to stand, all that kind of stuff. Talked to her for a second. Told her while they were shooting video that her shirt was popping open. That since nobody seemed to want to tell her, I don't know. I mean, she had a crew of people, and there's some big dude who'd been talking to her like all day. I was like, hey, tell her to put her shirt in. And he was like, what? I said, her shirt is popping open. It was too big. And I was like, he was like, I don't understand. What do you mean, man? I said, her shirt's popping up. You see through her shirt. You need to tell her. And he goes,
Right.
some girl, this woman came over and she's like, what? And I said to her, she goes, okay, I'll handle it. So she went over and told her, as you saw her fixing it, but it didn't really help. So they filmed another section. It's like, all right, cut. We're going to do another part. So I'm standing and she's staring at some mannequin that's right beside me. So I like slipped over in front of the mannequin and went like, it's your shirt. And
Well,
so
good.
finally she fixed it.
Especially if there's being photos taken. Like, and were you taking pictures at
Yeah, I
this?
was shooting behind the scenes, and then I had literally, well, I was told I had 60 seconds to do the portraits that I
Hmm.
had to shoot. So I had to plan all that out ahead of time. And I ended up getting about 90, maybe 120,
Right.
maybe
Okay.
10 minutes out of it. So, but yeah, I
What's
mean, they
like,
were,
yeah, someone getting the picture. Like, that's our business to sort of like figure out. It's like, okay, like, please let's present her in the most ideal way, right? Especially if you're the
yeah.
one taking images of her too. Um,
And she had at least two other people. So they had the main crew shooting video, and then she
mhm,
had two of her people shooting like behind the scenes video.
mhm.
And the way she was turned was literally so you could see straight into her shirt. Her shirt was probably two sizes too big. The white button down she had underneath her jacket, which I don't know why she had that on anyway. But
Many people to like prep her, right? Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, it
That's
was interesting.
that.
But it's been good. I mean, I've been shooting some during COVID, so it's
Mhm.
been good to at least be out there and getting it, and, with the protections and all that kind of stuff, protocols, and
Yeah. Well, and that's I'm kind of like was so proud to see that like an industry that that it necessitates people being close to each other and working in an environment or living in an environment that like we can't necessarily do that safely at this stage. The way that the industry kind of like all paused for a moment, uh, and then kind of rebuilt and figured out new ways of working, I think is I was so happy to see it, that despite something like kind of like so like such a drastic change in our culture, we're figuring out ways to still like to tell stories and like and do what we do despite that, adding extra safety protocols or figuring out what the best ones are. um, there was like sort of there was something at a certain shoot that I was working on that we were like, okay, how do we do makeup? How do we do makeup on a person safely, right? So we like had, I mean, some people were doing their own makeup, like so, like
oh
thank God
yeah,
some of these people are capable. And we have to like kind of maybe limit like the time that a person can be spent in close contact with them to like get in there, do like the important work, like the fine tuning of makeup and things like that, get out of it, and but those kinds of things people we never had to think of before, but leave it to sort of like the problem solving kind of industry to like be like, okay, we got this. Like we can still like um, create beautiful imagery despite these crazy circumstances. So I was kind of happy to see how the industry kind of bounced back, and we'll see how it continues to go, but um, I'm really satisfied with like the industry as a whole.
yeah. I think it's been going well. I'm interested to see how it is moving forward as far as because I know some people who've been location scouting by Zoom. The location scout goes there and they just have their phone on Zoom and they just show them the location, and then even shoots where the art directors are sitting back watching it at home and
Mm-hmm.
while it's all being shot. And then there's some where they're actually going on location and shooting on location and everybody's there watching, in person as it happens. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting to see how they're like two extremes on some of this. And
I mean, they even have, I mean, I think I've heard of this in stories before, like prior to COVID, but they have like art directors on iPads, on like C stands, on like wheelie stands,
oh
like
yeah,
walking around the studio on FaceTime or whatever. And like they like their face is like in like on an iPad, and for the PA like walking that stand around, I'd be like, okay, do you like this like dress? And the person's at home on
right.
FaceTime. So they it's this like very like sci-fi kind of like way of working, but and I've heard of other people doing that in the past, but um that's a reality now. I mean, that's something we can do now. Are
I
we
wonder
and
if you
we
hire a
feel
person that's
successful.
their job. It's just to move the C stand around, and that's your job for the whole day is to move the art
Legs,
where they
legs, man. The
go.
legs are directed today.
Yeah,
um yeah, but like I mean it's silly, but like that's a solve. Like I don't think that I think it wouldn't be. It's only funny if it's not necessary, right? Like
right.
like okay,
Yeah.
like how we actually get the shoot done.
Yeah, we
Uh,
can get it done, whatever it takes. You know, keep everybody working. I think it's good. All right, man. We're running up on about an hour. Let me ask. I'll get you out of here, but I want to ask you one last thing. what's the strangest or most interesting thing that's happened to you since you've started in this whole advertising business, this whole world?
Strangest or most interesting?
It can be freaky. It can be just absolutely strange.
Honestly, it's funny. It was okay. So I have an answer for that. So like in all this time of like kind of working around like cameras and things like that, I never get in front of a camera. I like don't like I'm not interested in it. I'm not like it's not like I'm not exceptionally self-conscious, but it's like I was never like it's in the off moments in between a shoot, like people get in front of the camera and they like take a silly picture or something. That's like never been my thing. But just like a couple weeks ago, I find someone was like, I think we were testing light, and I was like, and the photographer was like, get in there, we need someone to stand there. And I was like, not me, but there was nobody else around. So actually for the first time in like 6 years of like working around cameras professionally, I got my picture taken. And I was like, okay, and truly the only time
I get that.
yeah. So that was a significant singular moment that happened very recently. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. I try to avoid it, and occasionally, I think I need a picture for something, and I was shooting, and one of my assistants was like, "All right, get up there," and I'm totally not comfortable in front of the camera. And I was like, "I don't know what to do." I mean, I know what to do because I actually tell models what to do, but
Right.
it's a whole different thing when you're in front of it yourself and having to do it.
So yeah, I feel the same way. Like I'm like I normally would be like, I mean, just kind of like black out. Like I think I have like got completely like a white haze came over me. I like don't even remember the experience, but because you're so, like I think it's you know too much. I think I know too much.
That's probably true. Yeah, I can see that. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. Everybody watching, listening, thank you guys. Thumbs up it, like it, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you all soon.